Okay, and then we will begin our login process for the radio station. And you are on.
We're on. Good evening. Welcome to the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement, Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, set for 5:30 p.m. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Director Carr.
Here.
Okay. Director Leonard.
Present.
Director O'Halloran.
Present.
Director Simpson.
Present.
And Chair Taylor.
In attendance.
We have 5 members present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have a short announcement. Interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking audience.
Buenas tardes. Para las personas que desean escuchar la Junta Escolar en español, por favor de llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de clave que es 608-130-5362. Una vez más, para las personas que desean escuchar la Junta Escolar en español, llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de clave 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Also, everyone ensure that their microphones is muted so it does not interfere.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Pursuant to Board Rule 1.06, this meeting is being conducted virtually. Board members may be participating from the Central Service Building. In order to allow as much public participation as possible, this meeting is being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube screen, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. Individuals who wish to speak on tonight's items were required to register in advance. I ask those who are waiting to speak to remain on the platform until you are called upon to speak. Given that we do have another board meeting following directly after this, which is SPB, we ask that those that are on the platform at this time are those individuals that have signed up to speak for PACE only. Just as a reminder, Robert Rules of Orders dictates that all comments should be directed towards the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests are to be directed towards the chair, who will then determine the most efficient way to address them. All speakers are asked to state their name and spell their last name before proceeding with their comments. Each speaker will have 2 minutes and 15 seconds to speak. After a speaker's time is up, they may continue to follow the meeting at one of the broadcast options mentioned previously. To ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind, including inappropriate language, will not be tolerated. The chair reserves the right to remove anyone engaging in such behavior from the platform. Those removed from the platform may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, he or she will not be allowed to remain on the platform. Written testimony may be submitted to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@Milwaukee, spelled all the way out, .k12.wi.us. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda, items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee, spelled all the way out, .k12.wi.us. Madam Secretary, what is the first item of business for tonight?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 1 is a report with possible action on parent and community engagement. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Administration, do you have any comments for this item?
Yes, good evening, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. On October, the October Family and Community Engagement Report is before you. At this time, I would like to welcome one of our parent coordinators who are co-presenting with us, Vanessa Brown from Carver, and ask Mr. Darrell Hall to begin the presentation, and after which we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Darrell Hall. I am the Family and Community Engagement Specialist with the Department of Strategic Partnership and Customer Service. Co-presenting with me this evening is Vanessa Brown, proud parent coordinator of George Washington Carver Academy. I'm excited to have the opportunity to update the board on activities around family and community engagement. As the district focuses on the 5 priorities for success, family engagement is a critical component across all 5. There is alignment between the improved district and school culture and strengthened communication and collaboration priority. The 3 areas that guide our work and promoted common vision and goal of family engagement are shared leadership, building capacity, and collaboration. Shared leadership is allowing families the opportunity to partner with their school. Building capacity is planning and implementing professional development for parent coordinator and staff to effectively engage family. Collaboration is an approach to increase work with other departments in the district and community organization to strengthen engagement. Each of these goals are geared towards one main objective, which is to improve student outcome. All of the parent coordinators have worked extremely hard to help families stay informed and connected with their child's school. They coordinate and plan engagement activity, which focus on strengthening the family and school relationship while actively engaging community and business partners. The parent coordinator's primary role and goals include helping schools provide a welcoming and culturally relevant environment and equipping families with the necessary tools and resources to be active in their child's education. As I stated earlier, you are going to hear from Ms. Brown on the work she has done at her school as it relates to engaging families. It is important to note, parent coordinators occupy a unique role in our district. While family engagement is everybody's job, parent coordinators are unique in that engaging family is their primary role and purpose. The slide shows some demographic of the parent coordinator from the current school year. 19% of the parent coordinators on the slides you see are new. 41% have been in the role at least 1 to 3 years. 9% have worked between 4 to 5 years, and 31% have been with us more than 5 years. We are pleased to say we do not have a high vacancy rate, and we have a good retention rate. Currently, there are 5 vacancies. We have reached out to help facilitate the process with the school principals to fill these positions. To help get the new parent coordinators up and running, we offer 3 orientations. A total of 25 new and seasoned parent coordinators were orientated last month. The virtual onboarding was conducted for 3 consecutive weeks at the beginning of the school year on September 13th, and September 20th, as well as September 27th. The orientation covered the essential responsibilities of their role, the Title I annual parent meeting requirement, and other responsibilities. The school principals were also invited to join in and learn about the roles of the parent coordinators and their responsibility. Additionally, the Family and Community Engagement Team offers weekly virtual office hours and provide in-person support to all our parent coordinators. And as you see on the slide, the Central Region had 11 new parent coordinators, and this is from the spring of 2021 into present. The East, which is in red, had 9 new parent coordinators. The Northwest, which is in green, had 11 parent coordinators, and the Southwest had 10 new parent coordinators. So moving away from the parent coordinators to discuss the District Advisory Council. the District Advisory Council, the DAC, the aim of the DAC is to ensure MPS families have a voice in the district decision-making. The DAC consists of representatives from each school and meets monthly during the school year starting in October. Members work directly with the school leader and parent coordinators to report and share updates on information provided at the meeting. The minutes from the meetings are shared with the Office of Board of Government following acceptance of approved minutes by the DAC exec team. The DAC meets monthly on every first Thursday of each month from October through June. The first meeting is this Thursday, October 7th, and it will be held on the Zoom platform. DAC meetings are organized and led by the DAC Exec Committee. The committee is comprised of 9 family representatives. The representatives must be a family member of an MPS student. Schools must have 2 official representatives. And in the October meeting, all DAC members will receive an annual orientation regarding their roles and responsibility. Topics covered as part of the orientation are the DAC mission statement, structure of MPS and the DAC structure, roles and responsibilities of delegate members, and the DAC bylaw. In November, elections are held for the open committee position. At every meeting, we solicit feedback and input from DAC delegates by way of an evaluation and efforts to improve the meeting. We are excited to share the following information on the DAC attendance. In the year-to-year comparison from 2019-2020 and the 2020-21 school year, attendance increased every month. Noticeably, we sustained high attendance during the pandemic. We use a virtual platform as our main strategy to increase attendance. The parent coordinators provided families with technical assistance and helped numerous families learn how to navigate the virtual platform. As you see, in October of 2019-2020, we had 85 in attendance, and the following year we had 123. In November of both years, 2019-2020 and 2021, we had exactly the same amount, 107 in attendance. In December of 2019, we had 93 participants. In the following year, we had 141 that participated in the DAC meeting. In January of 2019, we had 99. In January of 2020, we had 133 that participated in this meeting. In February of 2019, we had 108 and 143 that following year. And in March of 2019, we had 92. And in March of 2020, we had 90 family members participated in the meeting. So in 2019-22 and 20, due to the pandemic, we did not have meetings in April, in May, or June. However, in 2020 and 2021, we had 70 participants in April, and in May, 84, and respectively 68 in June. The average attendance in 2019, which were in-person meetings, was 81. There were no meetings that occurred again in April, May, and June during the pandemic of 2019-2020. In the school year of 2021-20, we switched to a virtual platform, and the average attendance was 107 for the school year. On September 27, we held the 18th annual For Latino, a virtual special education family forum. Last year, we had to cancel due to the pandemic. Topics that were covered for those families whose students are receiving special education services with MPS was understanding the child IEPs, MPS child fine services, special education referral procedures, academic career planning, strategies for managing child's behavior or student behavior, post-secondary transition planning, college and career readiness, social skills and behavior, and early literacy reading. So based on the survey we sent out to a targeted group of families, we received feedback from 125 who stated they wanted to attend the meeting virtual. There were 10 topics that were covered in in the overview of the MPS Department of Strategic Services, Specialized Services, excuse me, by Jennifer Menz-Howe, Chief Office of Academic. 40 different agencies participated, and we were able to provide resource bags filled with information from those agencies, and they also provided their own agency swags. So 39 families took part in this virtual forum just this past month. Next, I want to talk about the My Very Own Library program. My Very Own Library, or MVOL, is a school-wide program where all students receive 10 books per year of their choice to build their own home library, and the school receives a visit from a scholastic author to promote family literacy at home. The program has been in MPS since 2015. 5,000 students and families participated in the program at 14 different schools, and 50,000 books were provided to students yearly. MPS partners with Scholastic Books, the University of Chicago, and the United Way to make this possible. Again, the program is in 14 of our schools: our Avenue, Brown Street Academy, Browning, Dorfla, Jackson, Hopkins, Lloyd, Cargo, Kluge, Lancaster, Longfellow, Lincoln Center of the Arts, Raleigh, Thompson Street School, and Zablocki. The goal of the program is to increase access to books and build home libraries for students. We are in the process of planning MVOL, My Very Own Library, for this school year, and with the same targets in mind: 14 schools, 5,000 students, and 50,000 books for every student. Indeed, the parent coordinators are actively involved in helping the schools to hold family engagement activities such as raising readers, Snuggle Up and Read, Literacy Night, and hosting book fairs. Before I transition to our co-presenter, I would like to briefly mention the School Messenger app. It is a single app for all school communication, which is very important for our parent coordinators to reach out and connect and help families stay informed. All parent coordinators are required to train on the use of School Messenger. The following touch points help families stay informed and connected about their school and district happening. These services are available through the School Messenger: newsletters, text messages, and phone call to outreach to families, as I mentioned before, to keep families informed and connected of what's happening around their school. Through September of this year, over 560,000 uses have been recorded. The last slide shows the continuous improvement efforts we are working on. Here's a list of some of the new efforts underway to support the parent coordinator, to better support their family and each other. The PC Playbook, a readily available tool and resource filled with resources and support for parent coordinator. It is a one-stop shop guidebook that will be available later this month. Family engagement collaboration, parent coordinators working together across schools to increase family engagement is an opportunity to learn what their peers are doing in terms of engaging families at their school. Professional learning community is a targeted learning to align with the family and community engagement framework. It exposes parent coordinators to strategies and best practices used in engaging families. The last one is On Demand, an online tool for parent coordinators to use to get valuable support. The tool will offer video tutorials and resources that will be available at any time. Now I will turn it over to Vanessa Brown, the parent coordinator at Carver Academy. Vanessa.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Good evening, Chair Taylor and the members of the committee. My name is Vanessa Ann Brown. I am the proud parent coordinator of George Washington Carver Academy of Math and Science, also known as Carver Academy. Carver Academy is a K-8 STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math school. This is my second year as a parent coordinator and an MPS employee. I've always volunteered in the community and at my children's school when they were growing up. So when my neighbor asked me to volunteer at her school, I said yes. While volunteering at her school and assisting her, I had an opportunity to see how important the role of connector, facilitator, advocate, and partner, otherwise known as parent coordinator, is. There was a joy that came when you had assisted a family in locating resources, or watching the faces of the students and staff as you provided assistance at the school. I realized that was a passion, and what better job to have than one where every day you know that you are making a difference. I know that some would say starting a new job during COVID is not ideal, but I would say it was not bad. Carver Academy is not a neighborhood school, and the majority of our families do not live within walking distance to the school. They rely on transportation, which was a barrier. Also, technology was another barrier for our families. So last year, being able to provide communications, offering tutorials, creating virtual ways to offer programming, and conducting workshops such as understanding progress reports, dropping off food and school supplies provided by community partners, and work by the staff fulfilled a very important need for our families and staff. Last year, we were able to establish a new partnership for the school. For the 21-22 school year, the Carver team wanted to generate excitement around our families and returning to school in person. Carver celebrated back to school in style with Cowboy Mike and his horse. The Carver team, which included administration, staff, City Year, Boys and Girls Club, and community volunteers, welcomed over 200 parents, guardians, and scholars to the Back to School open house. It was a fun-filled afternoon as families completed forms, were informed about the upcoming school year, safety measures, uniforms, Chromebooks, and school events. Scholars worked on an art mural, played various carnival games, won tickets for prizes, and obtained a guided horseback ride. Families were provided food, an opportunity to receive school supplies, discounts on uniforms, and met staff. Food and horseback riding was provided through Art of Health, incorporated a program developed by Marquita Edwards, funded through the Vader Philanthropy. Our school supplies were provided by Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, one of our community partners. This school year, I have been pushing out a lot of messaging to our parents regarding transportation, informing them of various resources and workshops such as Fatherhood Summit, the Special Education Workshop, various school rallies, and the Salvation Army Coat Drive. I've been working with our 8th grade teachers and Carver Academy counselor to make sure families are informed about early admission and high school open house dates. Once again, we will be offering workshops for our families, such as academic testing process for various grade levels. And in September, at our Student Engagement Council meeting, our families completed a vision board. The theme was, what would you like to see your scholars accomplish in the 21-22 school year? Families were encouraged to place these boards someplace where they could review it throughout the 21-22 school year and determine whether that vision is being accomplished. It is a pleasure serving as a parent coordinator, now being that connector, that advocate and person who works to identify, communicate, engage families, and develop school, family, and community relationships. Thank you for the time, and I will turn this back over to Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. This concludes our report, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you for that. Do we have any community members set to speak on this item, Madam Secretary?
We have no requests for public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Any committee members have any questions or comments on this item? Director Leonard.
Just thank you. I've had the opportunity to start working with Mr. Hall and Ms. Stone, and we started to work on some just some ideas and some projects involved with this process. I'm thrilled about it. Looking forward to working with you. Just wanted to be encouraging about it. And then I had just one question. Oh, your DAC meetings are always on the same day. They're always on that Thursday. So I'm just trying to make sure that I get to some of those meetings. Okay, so I'm going to have to make sure I look at the schedule and see when that's possible. I guess it's really not a question, it's just a comment. Sorry. Thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe the DAC meetings are the first Thursdays of the month unless something changes, correct?
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, Daryl Hall, Family and Community Engagement Specialist. That is correct. The DAC meetings are every first Thursday of the month, beginning this October 7th.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mr. Hall. Director Carr.
Thank you. I just want to say that I am truly appreciative of all of the parent coordinators. I can say during the pandemic, especially, I think I spoke with our parent coordinator more than I talked with teachers, school leaders, or anyone. It was constant contact, always available to answer the questions, the concerns of parents. And so I just want to give you all a shout out and say, I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I know that the work is not easy. And I'll always reiterate that it's a thankless job. And so I just want to thank you all publicly and say that I'm so proud and so excited to see the program, specifically those within the positions manifest and blossom. I have one question. I know we're running close to time. Just question for the superintendent and administration. How are we measuring the successes of our parent coordinators?
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee. One of the things that we are constantly doing is to make sure that we are evaluating all of our programs and things that we do. You see that we laid out some data looking at the number of individuals that are new versus 5 years or greater. That is a way of looking at how we evaluate. We had a number of different things. We kind of talked about this whole piece around messagings to families. How are they communicating with families and how that's going? You also looked at the numbers that we saw with virtual, where the numbers have increased since we've been in a virtual platform, looking at that, as well as the number of individuals that are attending meetings, as well as when you look at various programs that each, Ms. Brown kind of talked about some of the programs that she introduced around coming back to school and all of the different partners that she had that was a part of this. So you're looking at the number of individuals, business partners that are coming along with the school and how things are moving forward with that, the communication to parents in the Friday newsletters and all of those kinds of things. Are multiple ways of looking at that. All of those kinds of things are what we're using to evaluate. We're looking at it from a quantitative standpoint as well as a qualitative standpoint, and looking at numbers as well as stories and testimonials from families as well as students that are coming in contact with parent coordinators on a daily basis. And they are also being provided with a monthly meeting where they are able to drill down and go on, look at some of the areas in which they need professional development and looking at growth patterns around that particular piece, as well as a sharing pattern. They get an opportunity to share with other coordinators what's happening in one school where some other school, a coordinator can take that and go with it. So just a menu of services around that platform.
Thank you, Director Carr. Any follow-up or comments on that?
Yes, and I apologize. Maybe I should have elaborated more on what exactly I'm looking for. So say, for instance, if a school has a total population of 365 students, how are we determining the growth, or how are we measuring parental engagement and community engagement specifically? So like, say for instance, if we had 100 participants in 2020, 2021, will our goal be to increase that by 25 more, or 50 more based on the student population? So I think I'm speaking more to the qualitative data. How are we measuring the success relative to community and parental engagement to determine whether or not our parent coordinators are succeeding, and also to determine the supports that they need to continue to engage parents and communities.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, I will start it off and I'll pass it over to Mr. Hall But one of the things that is the role of the building principal, as well as Mr. Hall's office, to work with the parent coordinator around goals of where they want to go, where they need to go when you talk about participation. And then also, but to let it be known from a qualitative piece of this, that participation comes in all kinds of forms, whether there's someone coming to stand inside of the school to work with a child, or whether it's that parent that makes sure their homework is done and they are ready for school on the next day. But how do we looking at those kinds of things, but working together around that, which is a combination of Mr. Hall's office, as well as working with the school leader, as well as working with the parent coordinator. Mr. Hall, anything?
Yeah. Chair Taylor, members of the committee, Daryl Hall, Family and Community Engagement Specialist. Great question. So after each event that a parent coordinator has, they're tasked with surveying, providing evaluations so they can get that feedback and input from those family members to see what it is that's working well, what they're missing, what they need to move forward with creating even a better event or better program for their parents. So they're using that as their feedback to provide that extra voice. The other thing that the parent coordinators are doing, one of the things that I'm excited about is using the seasoned parent coordinators who have success in their schools, that have engaged in family, to kind of mentor and be the trainer of trainer for other parent coordinators, so they can use some of the strategies and methodologies that they use to get that success. So we measure success from a standpoint of some of quantitative is the DAC, how many representatives that the schools are having, how many meetings that they have for the SEC level. So all schools are required to have 7 meetings, or are they having those meetings? We ask for minutes and as well as attendance for those meetings. Are they having their annual meeting? And then the comparison from this year to last school year, how many were in attendance? And then how many of those individuals became involved in the school after reaching out and recruiting for those volunteers? So we look at that as a measurement. I know there's several schools that went from 0 to 65 participating in virtual meeting events, and out of those 65, they were able to get their 4 DHC delegates. So that's a measure of success. And what we're doing starting this month, is our monthly parent coordinator report, so we can start getting some of those quantitative data, that quantitative information in terms of attendance, in terms of events, how many events schools are having monthly, and then we look at that, create some benchmarks around that, so we can begin to come up with a better methodology and a better system to report out to the board when that happens.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that, Director Simpson. And my computer just went out.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. So clearly this testimony we hear from our parent coordinators, it makes it very obvious how critical of a role they play in our schools. So it's just wonderful to always hear that and take time to acknowledge the work that they're doing. I have a question though about my very own library. I was wondering, there's nothing that builds excitement in kids for reading, like taking home a book of their own that they get to keep. Are there any plans for expanding that program that we know of?
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, Daryl Hall, Family and Community Engagement Specialist. So, with My Very Own Library, the grant actually outlined those 14 schools. So there has been conversation around increasing that. And when it first started in 2015, there were 10 schools. So we had conversation to increase that number. So right now we have 14. We're going to continue to have that conversation because we want to really engage all of our students and all of our schools to improve that access to books and building libraries to continue reading.
Thank you. No follow-up. Just thank you. It'd be wonderful. Anything we can do to expand a program like that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. And not to talk from the chair, my question was going to be along the lines of Director Simpson to ask how were those 14 schools picked, but you said it was via a grant, and hopefully in the future we will be able to incorporate or enhance more schools. I think it's a great thing. I loved reading as a child, and I just think it's a way to open up opportunities for our students as well too. And then also as being a previous parent coordinator, a lot of times we look at quantity and how are we reaching our parents and enhancing their relationships with the school, but also looking at the quality of how many parents are either coming in, not just number wise, but how do they feel now, or having a better relationship with the school is something that I'll always look forward to as being a parent coordinator. So thank you all for this. At this time, I am going to pass the gavel to my vice chair because my computer screen is black.
So noted.
Okay, thank you. And I see Director Carr's hand raised again. Director Carr, do you have a question or comment? You're on mute, Director Carr.
I apologize. Thank you. Just quick, I just wanted to say it would be helpful to see the actual goals and then the actual numbers further support the narrative that this is such a significant role and that progress is being made. So I would appreciate if the next time during the presentation, you all have the goals as it pertains to parental community engagement, whether that's engaging partners or recruiting partners, and the actual success, so that those that are listening in the community can know that we are making strides, making efforts to fully engage the community and parents within our schools. But thank you.
You sent Steve to.
Madam Secretary, we do have some IIT support going on behind me. So I think Director Taylor has gotten the support she needs. Administration, going forward, would you be able to incorporate the type of feedback that Director Carr has just asked for when you bring these updates to the to board meetings, please? Can you comment on that?
Yes, Vice Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee, we'll be more than happy to get that information out with the goals at our next meeting. But the data will be at the end of the school year. So we won't have that data until the end of the school year to report. And that's the reason we report it tonight, because we report it after. So, but the goals, we'll be more than happy to get that and have that available. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments about this item? Going once, going twice. I don't actually have the script, so I'm just going to move on. Madam Secretary, what is the next item, please?
The next item is item number 2, which is a report with possible action regarding the bilingual education and the District Multicultural Multilingual Advisory Committee, DMAC. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. It looks like Director Taylor might be on, and as they are doing the shift change in the superintendent's office, are you prepared to present this item, administration?
Vice Chair O'Halloran and members of the committee, we're pleased to share our first quarterly report of the 2021-22 school year on bilingual education and the District Multicultural Multilingual Advisory Council. Before turning it over to the team, I would like to thank the team of Eduardo Gavan, Lorena Gainey, as well as Dr. Tatiana Joseph. And at this time, for all of their efforts and all of this great work that they're doing. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gavan.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair O'Halloran, members of the committee. I'm Eduardo Galvan, Regional Superintendent for the Southwest Region. As Dr. Posley mentioned, joining me today is Lorena Gainey, Director of Bilingual Multicultural Education, BME. Today we'll be presenting the quarterly update of the bilingual program and of the District Multicultural Multilingual Advisory Committee. Dr. Joseph is the LTE of the DMAC, and although she's not here today, I was in communication with her, and she will present in subsequent meetings. Again, we begin with our 5 priorities for success. The report today will touch on all 5 of the district priorities with emphasis on increasing academic achievement and accountability, improving district and school culture, and developing our staff. This slide denotes our bilingual population, our population in our bilingual schools. Currently, there are 13,174 students in 21 schools where the bilingual program exists. You see there 38.1% are English language learners. Again, this is a chart that does change a little bit. We just, our last update to this was on the 24th of September, right after Third Friday. There has been a little bit of movement, and throughout our updates, we'll provide the most recent numbers. Also, I just wanted to point out that of those 13,000, you see 69 or 65% are bilingual. Roughly about 8,400 students are identified as Hispanic. And then about a quarter of those, or about 3,400 of those students, are in a bilingual program. The mission and vision of the Bilingual Multicultural Education Department are there. Again, MPS students graduate with strong cultural and linguistic identities. That is something that's very key to the work that we do, leveraging these assets to navigate college, career, and life as global citizens. And I just wanted to make sure that that vision, sometimes we don't speak about that, but and the mission is there for you to see as well. And I'll turn it over to Lorena to give some program updates.
Good evening, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Lorena Guiney, and I am the Director of the Department of Bilingual Multicultural Education. I will continue the presentation, giving some updates on bilingual education, English as a second language, the Seal of Biliteracy, and World and Emerging programs as well. The Department of Bilingual Multicultural Education is excited to chair the Biliteracy Year at a Glance, which strategically maps out literacy, science, and social studies units in Spanish and English, grades K5 through 8, in accordance with the NPS Content and Language Allocation Plan. Explicit instruction and formative practices based on grade level standards using Arriba la Lectura and Galería de Lengua y Cultura adapted resources are detailed in the corresponding biliteracy units. Bilingual teachers had an opportunity to explore these resources during professional development sessions offered in August and September. I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank the bilingual teachers who gave input and feedback on this document throughout the development process. We will continue to develop biliteracy units for these resources and offer the corresponding professional development needed as well. The Department of Bilingual Multicultural Education in the area of English as a second language is proud to announce the implementation of the English Language Development Action Plan for 2021 through the 2024. Implementation begins with the resources from Vista Higher Learning and National Geographic Learning through the recent textbook adoption. The staff wrote 10 units to support teachers with instructing newcomers using the new resources and through the English Language Development Framework. Through the Refugee Impact and Refugee Youth Mentoring Grants, summer services were provided to 90 students with refugee backgrounds and their families. The district also reapplied for a new contract with the refugee grants to continue the work in years 2021-22. The next steps include professional development and the English Language Development Framework to all schools that educate English learners, as well as additional units to support English language development instruction through the use of the new resources and aligned to the ambitious instruction. The World Language Team for World Languages and Emerging Schools have created and rolled out a world language curriculum map and lesson plan template to provide clear consistency in language instruction across the district. Currently, we are in the process of acquiring 3 new resources to enhance language instruction across MPS. The first is Don Sign Press Interactive Online Students Materials to support and engage learners of American Sign Language. The second is Mango Languages, delivering content structure specifically to track skill levels and achievements recognized by local and international standards of proficiency. This is for all languages other than American Sign Language, and it does include English as a second language using the native language of the student. The third is LinguaFolio Online. This is a flexible, adaptable e-portfolio tool that provides a place for learners of any language and skill level to set goals, showcase their proficiency, and track their second language skills. It centers on learner proficiency and provides an effective framework for measuring language progress. Our Seal of Biliteracy year started with a virtual professional development at the end of September for all school-based coordinators and advisors who will review the Seal of Biliteracy timeline, duties, and responsibilities for year 22. New this year, there will be a Swahili student cohort led by Ms. Celine Onalao, who is one of our world language teachers at Riverside University High School. The purpose of this cohort is to provide guidance and support to all Swahili-speaking students in our district through the different components of the Seal of Biliteracy and help students attain and graduate with the seal.
Some further developments in the world language area. We did expand at world language at Andrew Douglas in the area of Spanish, Golda Meir in Spanish and French, Morgendale in Spanish. At all three of these sites, that is through proximity learning, BME, Bilingual Multicultural Education, will continue to work with human resources as soon as a teacher becomes available, should one, to take over that proximity classroom. And again, as listed there, these are additions to our other world language IB sites that are listed there: AAL, Lowell, King Middle School, Morse, Pratt, Stewart, and Wedgwood. In addition, this year, there was an addition due to population, needs of the population of ESL at Curtin. And we'll continue to monitor that in terms of whether that population shift continues and adjust ESL services as needed. CAGO again continues its growth, added a 6th grade this year as the program continues to grow there. And again, we'll continue to support that growth. BME will provide training as needed for all of those teachers. Riverside again added 11th grade, and that's a process that's been going on a yearly basis. They've been adding a grade. Hamilton High School, again, that's a process that began 2 years ago and now is adding 10th grade this year. Another thing that we've been working on would be marketing. We did work with the Bilingual Multicultural Education Department, with our communications department, with principals, and we will be working with DMAC to develop more marketing tools for our bilingual program. And some of those were used again this summer when we went out to all kinds of recruitment fairs and festivals in an effort to recruit students. With the District Multicultural Multilingual Advisory Committee, or DMAC, our first meeting of the year will be this coming 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, the 20th. It's a virtual meeting at 5:30. Again, some of the past work was establishing language opportunities throughout the district. Dr. Joseph and members of the committee worked with recreation to try to set up clubs in order to do more of a grassroots growth of language opportunities throughout the district. So that when we move towards expanding those opportunities, we're ready to go, and when we have an interest and do our best to make sure that that's successful. And the other meetings are listed there as well. That does conclude our update, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that. Do we have any committee members waiting to speak on this item, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, we have no requests for public testimony on this item.
Thank you. Any committee members wish to speak or comment on this item? Director Leonard.
Thank you. So I guess one question I have is, how are we doing with hiring? Where are we at on vacancies? It looked like we were starting to make some progress with it. I had a chance to talk to Mr. Harris, so I do know that there is progress in that direction, but I'm just curious as to actual numbers.
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, Eduardo Galvan, Regional Superintendent. We are in the process of our third Friday realignment. So it's difficult to say exactly where we are. I know through our process of getting bilingual teachers, that has impacted our bilingual paraprofessional ranks in terms of, so some of those have moved up, which obviously is a great thing, but it does mean that there are then less bilingual paras. We continue to struggle with those content areas at high school and again, special education. But those are areas that we are working on. The exact numbers, we'll have a better idea of where we are following Third Friday, and we could provide those at that time.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Director Leonard? No. Any other committee members have any questions or comments on this item? I don't see none. I have one question comment. I saw Golden Mayer come up for French and Spanish. I know they used to offer Spanish before, so is this for just an additional teacher or some type of new integrated Spanish and French class?
That's through world language. So, so we're adding that this year. Okay. And again, right now that's through proximity learning. So it's kind of, it's similar to a telepresence with an actual para or someone in that building supporting that as well.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments on this item, thank you all. Madam Secretary, next item.
The next item is item number 3, which is a report with possible action regarding data and progress associated with the Office of Civil Rights report, the OCR report. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Thank you. Administration, any comments on this item?
Chair Taylor, yes, Chair Taylor and members of the committee, for the 2021-22 school year, we are taking a very proactive approach to to address the disproportionality and to realize accelerating outcomes. Our monthly report will reflect this approach. At this time, I will ask Mr. Matthew Boswell to present the October report, and after, we'd be more than happy to respond to any questions that you may have. Mr. Boswell.
Yeah, so good evening, Chair Taylor, members of the committee. Matthew Boswell, Senior Director of the Department of Student Services. I will take you through the disciplinary updates and progress, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So, of course, we start with our top 5 priorities as our foundational alignment with anything that we do in the district. So, reporting for 2021-22, this monthly reporting associated with disproportionality for the 2021-22 school year will focus on the following: promote and provide resources to schools on alternatives to suspension, including an alternatives to suspension toolbox. Work with schools to make certain counseling and support services are utilized. Analyze and evaluate individual school data related to suspensions to determine best course of action to address disproportionality. Continue and expand book studies. Form district committees to identify, develop, and implement strategies to reduce suspensions. Resources for school prevention and alternatives to suspension. District-wide staff directory has been created. A district culture and climate toolkit has been created and is being utilized. A relationship building guide has been created and being utilized, as well as alternatives to suspension guidebook has been created and being utilized by our staff and administration. Insurance support services are utilized. District disproportionality team is a diverse group of NPS staff members representing multiple departments who meet monthly to review and examine district climate and discipline data with specific action on disproportionality or discipline towards African-American students. The mission of the 3D leadership team is to make data-based decisions to inform district climate and discipline systems, policies, and practice while advocating for students of color throughout the district. The vision. The vision of the 3D leadership team is for staff members across the district to be supported and held accountable to create safe and supporting learning environments for students of color in which conflict and behavior are viewed as opportunities for learning and teaching. Professional development that has taken place. And just some of the titles that our staff have partaken in this month. Defining behaviors, student voice, talking about waste, vulnerable decision points and biases, reentry process, universal supports through anti-racist lens. Continue to analyze data and determine course of action. Our disciplinary data for the month of September 1st through September 28th, 2021. Our total suspensions for the month of September is 1,297. As you can see, it's broken down by ethnicity and racial identity. September alternatives to suspension. One of the huge add-ons of this report this year, we want to really detail the alternatives to suspension. A lot of the detailed resource and guidebooks and alternatives to suspension detail taking proactive approaches prior to suspending students. So we wanted to make sure that the committee was very clear in understanding multiple attempts and course of actions as well as resources are used to prevent students from being suspended. And some of them are, we had 97 instances of conference documented. Administrative counsel, we had 601 incidents of administrative counsel conducted. Detention, we had 40 incidents of detention given as an alternative to suspension. Meditation, we had 87 documented incidents of meditation. And referral to BIT team, we had 8 incidents of documented engagement and restorative conference. We had 41 incidents of document interventions. And we will continue to work with our administrative staff in making sure that they document alternatives to suspension. These incidents are frequent, and we want to make sure that they are documented because they do lead to positive outcomes. We will continue and expand book studies, additional courageous conversations about race seminars, drop-in sessions for previous participants to utilize the framework, and additional book cohorts being offered to align with the course of courageous conversation and our district focus. One of the huge things is discipline committee to reduce suspensions. So we will convene a committee with stakeholders to examine district code of conduct and disciplinary levels. Staff members, families, students in the community alike will weigh in on this very important process as we look at, re-examine, and research the best course of action for our students in Milwaukee Public Schools. We will look at disciplinary levels of behavior and make sure that they are appropriate and accurate as it aligns with the student code of conduct and students' right to an appropriate free education and academic transparency. We will limit behavior types schools can suspend students for. So we will look at the student code of conduct and reduce things that students can be suspended for. Of course, we have a process in our students' code of conduct and our rights and responsibility handbook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 being counsel, 2 being suspension, 3 is a referral to the Department of Student Services, and 4, of course, is expulsion. We will look at those things and assign appropriate numbers in terms of response to behavior or conduct code violations to make sure it is in alignment with what is best for students. Identify additional alternatives to suspension and create professional development as needed. Upcoming events. Community conversation, our first community conversation is tomorrow, October 6th. Will be virtual. Pre-registration is preferred. It'll be from 6 to 7. Our Student Leadership Summit, the first of 2, is October 19th, 2021. This is our opportunity, once again, that our students lead. This is annual conference. And our students always bring a lot of energy, a lot of voice, and a lot of direction for the administration to partake and deliver on. So we expect nothing different from this year. That concludes our monthly report, and at this time, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that. Madam Secretary, do we have any public testimony or anybody waiting to speak on this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do. Our first speaker on the platform, would you like to go to speakers? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Great. Our first speaker on the platform would be Angela Harris. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Angela Harris, Harris,
Thank you.
Chairwoman of the Black Educators Caucus. In the month of September, Black students represented 84% of the district suspensions. These are the very concerning disproportionate statistics that led to the OCR investigation initially. District compliance with the OCR report and monthly updates to the board have done little to address discipline disproportionality for Black students. As a parent of 2 Black MPS students, it is clear to me that discipline policy changes pushed by the administration and board have done little to create the shift in classroom practices and school-based approaches to discipline. When discipline policy changes are being made, how are we intentionally seeking input from staff and students? What provisions are provided for additional staff and administrative training, coaching, and supervision to address the root causes of racially motivated disproportionality? How are we identifying and addressing glaring gaps in multi-tiered services and supports for Black students with social, emotional, or behavior concerns, and not just labeling them as discipline problems? How are we institutionalizing and operationalizing implicit bias, anti-racism, and restorative practices within our district culture? I was reading the Discipline Disproportionality Team's vision statement that was mentioned today. It states the vision of the 3D leadership team is for staff members across the district to be held accountable to create safe and supportive learning environments for students of color. Where is that energy of accountability and support for our students of color today? 7 years after the OCR complaint was filed, and our district still has yet to identify the root causes of Black students' behavior and link these causes to multi-tiered tested strategies and interventions that are effectively and equitably used by teachers and administrators. Michelle Obama reminds us that Black children, aren't bad kids. They're just trying to survive bad circumstances. Let's address the circumstances to decrease the disproportionality. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Angela Lucas Foley. Please state your name, spell your last name before beginning your testimony.
Angela Lucas Foley.
Please spell your last name and begin your testimony.
Lucas space F as in Frank, Oley.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Taylor, board members. My name is Angela Lucas Foley. I am speaking tonight on behalf of anti-racist white educators of Milwaukee. Are We Milwaukee has consistently pressed the Milwaukee Board of School Directors and MPS administration for more than a year, along with our partners, the Black Educators Caucus Milwaukee, MICA, and Leaders Igniting Transformation for district-wide professional development on racism and bias. Because this work is a priority for us, we will continue to monitor the monthly board reports on the Office for Civil Rights MPS resolution with a specific focus on accountability to the tenets of the resolution. Any system-wide process takes resources and time. What evidence does the community and the board have that resources and sacred time are being devoted to create the school environments where all students and staff feel welcomed, loved, safe, and have the ability to thrive? Page 1 of the monthly disproportionality report references the proactive approaches to reducing disproportionality this school year. Where is the support, financially and time-wise, for this system? Are We believes in the importance of the multi-tiered system of support, MTSS. MTSS relies on 3 tiers working together. Tier 1 is school-wide. To this end, When was the last time district-wide Tier 1 training was held? What budget funds have been set aside for Tier 1 training? The District Culture and Climate Toolkit was referenced in the August 2021 Monthly Disproportionality Report. RWE believes that MPS administration should provide the board evidence of the use of the District Culture and Climate Toolkit. How are schools supported in the use of this important toolkit? Can the board have a presentation of a best practices example to support climate and culture in the classroom? Curiously, this toolkit was not mentioned in this month's report. Finally, our year-to-date suspension numbers indicate that the system-wide processes in place are not sufficient. When combined with the August numbers, 84% of suspensions issued this school year were issued to Black students, while Black students represent only 51% of the student body. These numbers indicate a system that is still operating much the same way as when we entered the Office of Civil Rights Resolution in 2017.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Michelle Hilbert. Please state your name, spell your last name before beginning your testimony.
Hi, I am Michelle Hilbert, last name spelled Hilbert.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and dedication to this important work, Chair Taylor, the OCR team, and members of the committee. I appreciate this opportunity. When I look through this month's OCR report, I have some questions about information not included. Number one, as a white educator and a member of RWE, I am very concerned about the absence of clear anti-racist professional development goals for all staff. This work is worthy of measurable, time-bound goals, which are written with strong positive impacts in mind. I hope these are included in the report next month. Number two, I was glad to see the flyer for tomorrow's community conversations about classroom climate. These are whole city issues that require us to be all in. The description sounds more engaging for participants than some of the previous sessions, which were more presentations with opportunities to type in the chat. But I'm still wondering a few things. Number one, are these meetings valuable to the participants, and how do we know? Number two, what success criteria does the district have for these conversations, aside from meeting the previously stated benchmark of simply holding the event? Number three, historically, what percentage of attendees are voluntary, and is this changing over time? Number four, how is MPS administration communicating that this is useful and relevant to our wider Milwaukee community? I know parent coordinators were invited to share, but if we were, I think parent coordinators were actually required to attend, but if we really want voluntary engagement, we could get creative, like advertising on radio stations or using social media. And number five, where can the community find the feedback and takeaways from these conversations? We all need to be bold and get comfortable with being uncomfortable in this vital work. Budgets are moral documents. If we truly believe that we can positively impact student outcomes, our district must allocate adequate resources to make the necessary and urgent growth to help rectify these inequities in our city. We could be leaders. This work deserves a fully resourced department with every staff member throughout the district engaged. Our students deserve better, and we can deliver. Are we committed to positive, impactful actions? Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Gretchen Happerman. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Hello, my name is Gretchen Happerman, Kapperman.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Taylor and members of the PACE Committee. I'm a white educator and member of Anti-Racist White Educators of Milwaukee. As others have said before, I need to repeat these statistics for you. As of today, no concrete evidence is being provided by the administration that learning environments are better serving Black students. There is no evidence that unequal discipline of Black students is decreasing. In fact, when calculated for year to date, Black students have received 84% of the suspensions issued, while only representing 51% of the student body. When Milwaukee Public Schools entered into a resolution with the Office of Civil Rights, Black students were receiving 80% of the suspensions issued. Those statistics do not lie. Do not let this administration gaslight you into believing that they are actually doing something for our Black students. What we're doing is not working. We are failing our Black students. What are we doing to create environments where Black students can thrive? There is no serious investment of time or money to fix the systemic problems, and this is harming our Black students. Where is the accountability? Over and over again, the administration has been gaslighting us by reporting statistics without substance. I implore you to cut through this administration's smoke and mirrors, take the OCR resolution seriously, and hold yourselves accountable to our Black students in MPS. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that completes the testimony for this item. The item is back with the committee.
Thank you. Committee members have any questions or comments on this item? Director Leonard, I've seen Vice Chair O'Halloran, and then I believe Director Carr. In that order, please.
So I'm going to keep it, first of all, this was our concern in, I believe it was April or May or whenever we were looking at numbers from last year during the COVID period of time. And I just sort of discounted that. And I'm glad I did. As a educator for over 27 years, I did not see a lot of change with regards to this. So it's a little bit, to say the least, very frustrating. My one question to start with is, are there any buildings that restorative justice and the kind of climate we're looking for that is in our system that we can use as an example, something that we can make a comparison to? I know that there were classrooms because that was how it was for me. I rarely had to suspend anybody in my classroom, so I'm a little bit confused as to why these numbers are through the roof. But it'd be good if we had a building that had something that we could get our hands on to take a closer look at what's really working and why it's working in that building. And I don't want to point one building against another building. I'm not trying to do that, but we have to use some kind of metrics here to get a feel for what we're really dealing with. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Administration, any feedback on that question / comment?
Yes, so Chair Taylor, members of the committee, Matthew Boswell, Senior Director of the Department of School Service. We do have several schools that that is operating the restorative practice process extremely well. So I necessarily won't go into those names on record because I don't want to do that to our other schools, and I don't think on record it's appropriate. But however, I'll be more than happy to share those schools with Director Leonard if needed. And we appreciate the feedback as well as the idea, and we'll be more than happy to definitely look into that and make that a reality.
Got it. Vice Chair O'Halloran, Director Carr, and then also Director Simpson in that order. Vice Chair O'Halloran, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have two questions. One, so the August data, as noted by several speakers, was about 85%. And in the report, it says the team met on page 1 of the report, sorry. The team met on September 9th and created a mission and vision statement, as well as action steps aligned to the August discipline data. Can you share some of the action steps that were aligned with that discipline data so that I know we're reviewing September data now, but would those be similar action steps that would be implemented in response to September's data, or can you share what outcomes come out of this data?
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, John Jagman, District Discipline Manager. So yes, two of the bigger action items that came out of that, it would have been beginning of September when we looked at August data, was that committee started the creation of a district directory of supports, where we're having all these different departments create what supports in terms of professional development, coaching, one-on-one supports for schools and students that they offer to schools, and we're creating a one document for schools. So if the school is kind of curious what supports are out there, they can go to one kind of a directory. So we're working on that. We do have a draft out there. We're having everyone proofread and all that. So that was one definitive action step. The other action step was due to the fact that August's data was early start schools, which is predominantly middle and high schools. It's not all middle and high schools, but predominantly middle and high schools. So we talked about ways to engage student voice, and it's going to kind of direct some of our breakout sessions at the Student Summit is to engage students in what are they seeing, and based on some of the behaviors that we're seeing more and more of, what are the students seeing as kind of causes of those behaviors and what they want to see as kind of more of those supports for it. So the two big takeaways was that directory of supports and then really looking at the middle and high school students and what are they saying.
Vice Chair O'Halloran.
Okay, thanks. My other question was around how the one of the speakers spoke about not seeing the flyer on social media. I do actually think I saw the flyer on like LinkedIn and Facebook and possibly Twitter. So how are the ways that we have communicated the meeting that will be happening tomorrow to parents? I believe social media was one way, but you can confirm that or share any other ways that we've communicated about that meeting.
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, John Jagman, District Discipline Manager. So our avenues of advertising that, it was in Thursday updates, I believe 3 weeks ago. We shared it through Darrell Hall and the parent coordinator. So they all parent coordinators got it and they were asked to share it through their networks. I actually got it from a school our child attends through their Remind system. We also sent it to all schools discipline champion. That's a group that I communicate with. All schools have identified a discipline champion. So it went out to them. And then, yes, it was on MPS's Facebook. I saw it on as well. I saw it on Instagram, Twitter. Again, those algorithms work differently for different people. So I can't attest how many times different people have seen it, but I did see it on all those platforms as well.
Chair Taylor and members of the committee, and also in the family newsletter, it was posted out there as well.
Thank you. Director Carr and then Director Simpson. Director Carr, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. First question is how many staff do we have in the district?
Administration.
Chair Taylor and members of the committee, roughly 10,000 employees in the district.
Director Carr, the next two questions.
The reason why I asked is because I'm looking at the professional development, and the first thing that stood out to me was the self-paced modules. When we're dealing with an issue as significant and as critical as school and student disciplinary policies and actions, I think first things first, like there should be a policy in place that will make this mandatory for everyone. Then when I hear that there's 10,000 staff in the district, yet 98 completed defining behaviors, universal supports through an anti-racist lens, 119. I think when we're talking about the 84% of suspensions issued this school year so far, I think that's a great starting point. That's an area where we can improve. There has to be mandatory or policies that mandate the professional development. So my question, my second question is, how are we delivering the professional development for addressing student behaviors and alternatives to suspension? Are these in person? I see that there's one that specifically speaks to this that was self-paced module, I'm assuming online or some other way. Are we providing in-person professional development to staff in our schools, and how often are we doing so?
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, there's a couple things at play here. First of all, that the board has already worked with the administration to make this mandatory for all staff members. This is a 3-year plan that we're rolling through. Last year of the plan, we did all of the middle schools and high schools. And so in this year, we had elementary schools and then all the other auxiliary groups of staff within our district. And it's mandatory that everyone go forward to do that. It has been in a virtual platform because of the pandemic, and we can't do face-to-face. However, face-to-face is one of those options that we have to look at. We also, along with that process, had 10 individuals from this district trained as presenters to be able to present throughout the year. What you see that is presented in this document is all of the different things that we do outside of courageous conversations around race. There's a number of other topics that we have gone into to continue to dig deeper in this, as well as various book studies, and each school in the district might be doing a different book. So, but there are some things that are just set in stone that are mandatory that every individual and organization have to go through. And then there are other things that are offered through our learning management system that individuals can go for additional training if they like.
Director Carr, your third question.
Yeah, so my third question is, when I think about and I'm just listening to the live testimonies and speaking to the written testimonies that have been submitted, I see the multi-tiered system of support. And I understand that tier 1 is school-wide. Can you walk me through and then lead me to the evidence to support the district-wide tier 1 trainings and the results or the data that has come from that?
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, John Jagman, District Discipline Manager. So some of that we'll have to come back with you to get the data as requested, Director Carr. But the tier 1 is part of the MTSS multi-tiered system support that is specifically addressing the PBIS framework. And there are 5 PBIS coaches and a PBIS supervisor. They each support one of the regions. So they're the ones that go out to those individual schools, coach them on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Those individual coaches then provide professional development kind of as needed at the schools. And again, we can get more data on that. I don't have that in front of me, but there is no currently like district-wide, all schools attend this tier 1 PD. We've been implementing it long enough where we do need refreshers in different buildings, but different buildings are at different places. So we can get you more information on that, but that does directly come from that PBIS team that supports tier 1 and tier 2.
Director Simpson.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. My question was also kind of around that idea of tier 1 and what kind of supports we're offering. I'm looking in particular at this 3D leadership team. Is part of their role looking at tier 1 at all? And kind of related, or kind of a second part of that question is, you know, what kind of time are we setting aside for schools to really look at tier 1? Because yes, PBIS is sort of like one thing that a school, you know, one part of that, you know, support that can be school-wide, but there are other things that I know schools do all the time to kind of address that tier 1, you know, classroom environment, school environment, things like that. So is there time set aside for schools to really sit down and look at what we're doing school-wide tier 1 besides PBIS?
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, John Jagman, District Discipline Manager. So yes, every school, like you mentioned, has the PBIS tier 1 team. All schools also have a discipline work group that is specifically looking at tier 1 would be the term, but they're looking at school-wide behaviors, and they are really pulling the data on student behaviors that we would clarify as classroom managed, that aren't even reaching the levels of behavioral referral and a breach of the code of conduct. So students who are talking out of turn, wandering the classroom, that team looks at that data as well to identify what systems and supports are needed in the school, what PD is needed in the school. And then the second part of their work is then to identify those students who are having more behavioral situations and what supports need to be in place. So all schools do have kind of both those teams, the discipline work group and the PBIS tier 1 team. Sometimes they're interconnected and they work together, but they do have those specific teams. And then all schools also do have the building intervention team, or BIT team, some people call it. That is the team that leaves tier 1 kind of with those other teams, and they specifically look at which students are having multiple behavioral infractions and what supports do they need. So all of those are in place at the schools. Again, we'd have to get more information about what different ones are kind of doing, but they all have submitted their minutes for the months of August and September, and then that is the directive going forward.
Director Sansom, any follow-up to that?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's really important that schools have that opportunity to really sit down as a staff and look at, you know, our culture, our climate, you know, what does that look like and what can we do to improve it? And then of course, just a comment then, you know, related to budget, it's our job then to also fund those supports and those initiatives and make sure that schools have what they need in order to work on this important job that we have of educating all of our students. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I see Matt Chasen and then Director Carr. In that order, please. Matt Chasen.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Previous month's reporting on this item would include a table that would have a breakdown of all the behavioral events that led to an out-of-school suspension or a student services suspension. It's absent this month. I was wondering if the administration can provide some insights as to the why or the how it's not present this month.
Administration.
Yep. Chair Taylor, Mr. Chase, and members of the committee, what we really, from the administration stance, what we really want to do is take a clear look at suspensions and compare apples to apples in terms of suspensions, as well as to look at all of the alternatives for suspensions. That process can always be, provided or sourced out. But for this process, we really want to look at suspensions. So just detailing in the purpose and the process of suspensions and drill down on where they're coming from, who are the teachers associated, what schools are associated with suspensions, and comparing it from year to year to give you a lens. And this is nothing to quote unquote write home and tell mama about, but in comparison to the 2019-2020 school year, in comparison to current 2021-22, in 2019-20, we had 1,632 suspensions during the month of September. In comparison to this year, where we had 1,200 and some odd suspensions. So in terms of that comparison, we get an opportunity to look and say, okay, we have 400 less suspensions. What were some of the things that was put in place? What were some of the alternatives to suspensions we put in place? And the administration focus was to really align those alternatives to suspensions that can impact that number of monthly suspensions. And of course, directly work on the disproportionality of the percentage of suspensions for African-American students. That is the overall goal here. But we also have to make sure that we have a laser focus on the number and type of suspensions. So that's why you see the report broken down as it is. We want to be alternative to suspension and rich. We believe that is the category that we can get the biggest bang for our buck as we continue to look at alternatives, resources, systems, and strategic outputs to impact that number, which would then drive down that percentage of disproportionality that I know we all are so passionate about. So I hope that answered your question.
Chair Taylor and members of the committee, one of the things that we have looked at is the root cause of why we get numbers. And that's what you will see in the document. And we have made that pivot to take a look at when we talk about convening a committee of stakeholders to examine the codes of conduct and discipline levels, looking and working, making sure that we make sure that committee have staff, families, students, and people from the community looking at the discipline levels, because if there's an infraction that calls for suspension, that's the reason that it's skipping to suspension. So looking at, do we remove those items out and working with staff around that, and then looking at true alternatives to suspensions. Ever since I've been in this business, we've been talking about alternatives to suspension, 2 boxes for suspensions and all of those kinds of things. And that's one thing that's going to happen as long as there are schools, as long as there are students, as long as there are staff, we are going to have infractions. But it's the idea of what we do with those infractions, what kind of tools we have in the toolbox to address those infractions. And then also looking at how do we create professional development around staff and drill down to work with individual staff. And behind every student, we're talking about the number of suspensions here, but every suspension, someone wrote them up. And so therefore, we have to address that. We have to address the root cause. And so that's our goal of looking at it from this standpoint, other than bringing numbers to say, hey, look at the numbers that we have. We're drilling down to see how we can rectify the situation that we have going.
Matt Chason.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. It has been the position of this office to commend the administration for the transparency associated with this item. I would like to be able to continue to do that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Carr.
Two requests. One, I would like for the administration to provide evidence of the use of the district's culture and climate toolkit, first thing. Second thing, I think for next month's committee meeting, it will be extremely advantageous or beneficial to have a presentation of best practices for to support climate and culture in the classrooms where these practices are working. So I'd like to see a presentation next month, as well as evidence of the use of the district's culture and climate toolkit. Thank you.
Administration.
Chair Taylor, members of the committee, yes, we can do both those. We can have some school staff kind of talking about their implementation of some of the best practices within the toolkit and what that kind of looks like for sure. We can look at some of the data, look at what schools are submitting in their minutes, and reach out to some schools and have a code presentation.
Thank you for that, Director Carr. Follow up.
Yes, and I would like to see some of the schools that at one point, some of the schools that have struggled in this area as it pertains to behavioral issues, concerns, and suspensions, not schools that are thriving at everything and doing everything else right. I would like to see some transparency in that process being the presentation, because in order to know what's working and what doesn't work, we have to one, be real about the conversations and the work that's happening, but two, we have to be vulnerable and comfortable with being vulnerable enough to show the areas where we are not so strong, and to inform the community that we acknowledge where we are, and this is our vision for moving forward. And so I just ask that we have school or individuals who are at some of the more challenging schools and not the schools that are thriving at everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Administration, any feedback or comment?
Yeah. Chair Taylor, members of the committee, absolutely, we'll be more than happy to follow the request of Director Carr. So we'll be more than happy to do that. And also, I just want to be transparent in a very respectful manner in terms of when we look at the student code of conduct, in terms of our invitation to organizations, in terms of our invitations to community members, we really need the voices to be as loud at those meetings as they are in this committee. So when that takes place, and I'm just going to speak honestly, as we looked at the student code of conduct previous years, attendance was very low. The invitations went out because I chaired the committee, and the attendance was very low. So I really appreciate, respect the comments, but where we're really going to need our committee and all of the individual community organizations that spoke on this platform today is to be at that meeting when we look at the student code of conduct, making sure that their voices are heard, that their skin in the game is evident and clear. And we will be more than happy to work with them. And that's the only way we're going to change the narrative of what we see that's translating in our schools. This is the community and the schools evolve as a wraparound service, and we really need them at the table to make sure that we complete that circle.
Thank you for that. I only have one comment and question, so I'll try not to speak from the chair. We talked about the student leadership summit and things going on, but when we also talk about those individual students who were picked or are participating in this, have we ever looked at some of those stats also as those that may have a higher rate in suspension level? I often say those that are closest to some of the issue should also be closest to the solution, and maybe having those students be a part of the discussion and some of the things going forward would be a great idea to help us get to some of the root causes of some of the things that are going on as well within the district. So I would like to see something like that, hopefully in the future, or something similar to that going on with the summit leadership. And in any way, I feel like as board of directors too, we also are here to be a help and assist in the district as well too. So, and I see Dr. Mann coming on.
Oh no, I was just preparing.
Thank you. You know, I was going to get next. Okay. Thank you for that. But that was more of a comment and a question, but I'll make sure I send more details of what that looks like within my vision to administration and how we can incorporate those young people, our babies, into this solution process as we continue to move forward. Seeing no other questions or comments on this item, what is the next item, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
Thank you. As a reminder, the meeting of the Strategic Planning and Budget Committee will begin shortly after we adjourn this meeting. Thank you for staying on, and for those individuals that are wishing to speak at SPB, please stay on the platform for you will be called in order. There being no further business before this committee, the meeting is adjourned, and see you all shortly.
Thank you.